Hey everyone, welcome to Pass or Play. So today I will be reviewing Reasonable Doubt Season 1, Episode 5, titled So Ambitious, currently streaming on Hulu. So we open up 16 years earlier, and it's 2007. Jax is a public defender. She's in the courtroom. She's doing her closing arguments on her case. And, she's speaking Spanish to her client, and her client just he wants a plea deal. He feels like, though he didn't commit the crime, he just assumes that he's going to lose the case anyway. He just assumes that, life has shown him that nothing has, ever goes his way. So even though she did her closing arguments as the public defender, he just feels like it's better if he takes the plea deal. And later in this episode, we show that at this time she's working on a total of 37 cases, and over 50% of them are all plea deals. There's like 7 cases that she wins, and then the rest are like losses. But you beg the question. They talk about how public defenders are overworked. It's like there's only 24 hours in a day. If you have 37 cases, how can you really manage the time in between all of these cases to give, each person their due diligence, in trying to defend them. And that's why a lot of cases just end up kind of falling at the wayside because they're just overworked, underpaid. And I think it's just them. It didn't show that she had any like interns or anybody helping her. It's just like it was a one woman show. But you do see the conviction. You see that she believed in working her cases, and she believed in helping people and giving people second chances. So you do get to see kind of Jax, I would say, before she becomes this kind of corporate private lawyer that we see her, starting kind of from the first episode. So I did appreciate that, and I think this episode really gives you a true sense of kind of how she was and who she was prior. You kind of see the beginnings of how more in tune to who she is, in the episodes, that's more in the present, but you see that she was still a good lawyer even then. So that's really cool. But so we go to Damon, aka Prison Bay. We find out that he was charged with second-degree murder. He was with his friend at a bar, and a fight broke out, and um, the man ends up getting stabbed in the neck with a knife that has Damon's fingerprints on it. It is a knife that he bought from a hardware store that he carries for protection. Somehow the knife falls out of his pocket. Somebody ends up using it and stabs this guy in the neck for talking smack to his friend Raphael. And his friend Raphael, they're just about the same complexion. They look alike. They do have camera footage of in the bar. Um, and initially Damon did not want to rat out or say that his friend did it for a lower case. I mean, a lower, yeah, not for a lower case, but for a smaller sentence or something like that. He didn't want to rat out his friend, but his friend Raphael ends up ratting out to him, to the district attorney. And the case kind of goes, it doesn't go in his favor. But we do get to learn more about Jackson this episode, and we get to learn more about Damon. But Damon, his mom had died of an overdose, and his dad, you know, worked himself to death, running the auto shop. And when his father died, Damon was the one that was in charge of it with his brother CJ. And in the case, during this time, though Damon's, he swears that he didn't do it. He did lie to the cops, um, and he lied to the cops, and he kind of left the scene of the crime. And then I guess they went back and got, then they went and got him later. But he lied to the cops, uh, about information regarding the case, and so they're using that against him in the in the prosecutor's defense. And And based on the information, Damon has kind of two options. He can take a plea deal of 6 years and hopefully get parole in 2 years, or he can go to trial and be facing 15 years to life. And in this moment, and now in this moment, you see that Jax and Damon have instant chemistry, and they have instant chemistry. At first, she kind of does have a little bit of a facade, trying to understand the case, get the facts. But eventually they both kind of let their guards down and they get to know each other in a very quick way. And it's very, it's cool. Like they had instant chemistry. Like I think both of the actors did a good job of showcasing that. And clearly Jax has selective memory because in was it the second episode, she's like, I don't know what you're talking about, we didn't have anything. I'm like, he has her number, he's calling her multiple times from the prison cell, following up on the case. She's calling him, getting more information. Why didn't you tell me this? But at a certain point he gets a burner phone and he calls her, like, probably sometime after 11 p.m. or midnight, and they end up having phone sex. Now, in this scene, I'm like, they're not going to take it there, are they? I saw it coming, but they do. And he's like, what you doing to me? He's like, I'm doing to you what you doing to me. And but they truly do make a connection. And you can see, I mean, I think at one point in this episode too, it looks like she was almost about to say I love you, because we know that he ends up losing the case. And you know and at one point, even before she decides to go to trial, he's like, I thought you were gonna fight for me. And he's like, you're gonna give up on me like everybody else in my life. And it's like, wait, 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 wait. Now, literally at this point, this was just like maybe the second day or a little bit later in the day that she first met him to even, to take the case. And that's just a lot to put on somebody. I mean, and yes, his mother was a drug addict. And two, in this episode, she opens up to him and lets him know that her father, her biological father, was a drug addict, in and out of rehab. And she's saying how the system failed him and how he didn't get, he just needed a second chance, but he didn't get any. And so she believes in giving people a second chance. And she also understands, not being heard and not being seen. And they both talk about how they see each other. And I'm just like, like, I see you, like in the Avatar. And it's like, you could really see the connection here. And this is funny where she's like, it's funny in episode 2, it's like omission, I plead the fifth. So Jax is an interesting character. I mean, she's an interesting character as I watch this episode. It's very interesting. It's like what she chooses to remember, what she chooses to forget, what she will admit to, what she won't admit to. It's very interesting. But he does end up apologizing for saying that over the phone. But eventually, again, the case, they end up the jury ends up, saying that he's guilty. And she does everything that she possibly can. She goes and digs into Raphael's past when he was like in grammar school, pulling out a knife on a kid, saying he's going to kill him. I mean, she does her due diligence to try to defend Damon. But at the end of the day, the jury still decides that he's guilty of murder, even though he's not. And she offers to put in an appeal and to continue to fight for Damon. But he says no, you've done all you can. And basically just kind of tells her to move on with her life, more or less. I'm just going to be somebody that you once defended because you a boss lady. And and it kind of ends there for their story overall in this episode. But you do see how they kind of, they do have, they are a little guarded, because they kind of do have to, I guess, again, he kind of does have to trust what she says she's gonna do. And does she actually follow through on what she says? And she does, she is a little, I guess hesitant at first because it's like, do you believe me? He wanted to know that she believed him. And, at first she was a little hesitant, but when she started looking at the information, which again, though, even then she bases it on the facts of the case, what's actually there, she starts to see that he, he actually is innocent, and she also sees how him and Raphael again resemble each other, which is supposed to be his friend, but I guess if you could be in jail for 15 years to life, you got decisions to make, and Raphael decides to go along with what the DA Miguel is telling him to do, and that's to basically take a take a deal if you basically say Damon did it, and that's what his friend did. Not a good friend. Pick better friends, Damon. And let's talk about this. Okay, let's go to Miguel because he's a district attorney here, and he has this like comb over that you see like these kind of anchor man wearing on the news channel, and I don't know, is it like a wig or like a mixture of weave? But it's funny, every time I saw him, I just died laughing. And I bet you they was laughing too when they were filming this because it just looks really like weird on this. It just looks weird on him. It's like, okay. And there's a scene where Miguel gets this award from their like college or their alumni or whatever, and he shoots his shot to Jax, saying that eventually he wants to be governor of California, and if he and Jax gets together, they could have Afro Latino babies and basically win their constituents, Latino with African American, two minorities joining together and, basically getting into politics. And he shoots his shots and Jackson's like, no. She just laughs at him like, no, I'm gonna leave you alone with you and your award. You feeling yourself a little too much. But also too in this episode we see that Miguel he cared about winning the case. He just cared about winning the case because he's the DA on the case. And he didn't necessarily care. Whether or not if Damon was innocent. It was just another case for him to win. Um, and now previously in the other episodes, I said like the girlfriends are okay for me. Like I have nothing against them. I just feel like at least in those first couple episodes, again, she's always Jax is always so busy, and sometimes I feel like the girlfriends are just kind of treated like she tries to make time for them, but she never does, and that's just kind of how I feel. I think the characters are fine, but anyway, in this episode they do tend to have some good like one liner kind of comedic things, and in this episode they had the comment on that sounds like the ending of a Lifetime movie when one of Jax's friends is asked to take a trip to Miami, on his private jet, the football player Jamarion, before they get married, and then the other one where her friend is getting married, about to get married, and they're at the bachelorette party in the bathroom, and she's like, I can't be a housewife. I can't be a housewife. When I was a whole wife, and settling down and sleeping with just one man, and she talks about, I gotta sleep with this one dick forever. So I thought that was funny. I thought those were some like I thought that was a good. Those were some good scenes. Um, to me so far sometimes with friends they have good one liners, but I mean I don't know, I just don't care that much about the girlfriends dynamic really. But and then two, we also find out that Jack's first name is actually Jacqueline, and Jax is just a nickname, which I guess maybe I feel like maybe I should have figured that out, but yeah, it's not Jax, it's Jacqueline. But when somebody calls her Jacqueline, she's like, call me Jax. And so, but now we know. If you didn't know, now you know. And then let's talk about the stepfather, Paul. So this is 16 years earlier, and so it turns out. So basically, Jax Jack's mom, Mama Lou, she's very supportive. I mean, in this episode, she's very supportive. She's positive. She's edging Jack's on, telling her things to watch out for. Don't let these things get you down. She's just supporting her daughter. But one of the days when she's leaving out of the house, Paul is at the door, and it looks like Mama Lou was trying to rush out of the house before Paul even got there. But basically, Paul was an alcoholic and he did some things, drinking that he's not proud of, but he's sorry. Now, we still don't know what necessarily happened between Jax and Paul yet. He's saying he's 10 years sober and he's better now. And, basically, he and Mama Lou want to get back together. And now we still don't know exactly what happened. Was he, maybe was he physically abusive towards Jax? Or did he do something, creepy, sexual? I'm assuming it's something more sexual, being the fact that she doesn't like to go over there, and she doesn't want her kids over there. But they still have yet to say what actually has happened. And then two, I'm also trying to figure out, was Mama Lou and Paul married or were they just dating? Um, it doesn't really, they don't really specify that. So was she just dating Paul whenever what happened between him and Jax, or were they married at the time, or did they get married, within this 16-year span? But either way, you know, Mama Lou's like, you fight to give people these second chances, but you won't give Paul one. I think it depends on what the hell Paul did. If he sexually abused or assaulted her, well, I mean, why would she want to be around him? Why would she want her kids around him? So now, if it was maybe like physical abuse, or maybe he was verbally abusive or something, maybe she can forgive that. But that just depends on the person. You can't necessarily tell somebody how to feel about abuse. You can be positive, you can be supportive, but you can't tell them how to feel. But from the way that she seems to be, I don't really think it was something. I don't think it was like verbal or physical abuse. I think it was a little bit more than that. But I guess eventually we're gonna find out. And also, too, in this episode, honestly, that's a lot of what really. That's really the basis of the episode. It really focuses on Jax. Jax as a public defender, mainly her case with Damon, and then that first case with her client Hector, who just takes the plea deal, even though she does a good closing argument for him and probably did the best that she could with his case. He just feels like he's not going to win. But we end when we go back to the present time, 6 months ago, and Jax, she has two missed calls, one from Jax. I mean, she has two missed calls, one from Damon and one from Lewis. And she calls somebody, but who does she end up calling? And then two, after the final verdict for Damon is given guilty, she goes back to see him, in prison, and talks to him. And, she says, I can do an appeal. And he's like, no, you did all you can do, move on. The night that she's driving back from the prison is when she literally crashes into Lewis's car. And so she met Lewis on the night of basically ending kind of, her interactions with Damon, and also being a public defender, because after that, that's when she quit. After that case, she was just kind of heartbroken because she felt like she did everything she could. And again, the system failed him. It failed Hector, Uribe. It failed a lot of people, because they show you all the 37 names of the cases that she was working on. Again, over 50% of them had pleas. It showed that she won 7 or 8 of the cases, and then the rest were just losses. But honestly, this was a really good episode. I mean, I don't really have any complaints. I think, honestly, for me, this was the best episode. And I also will want to spotlight too that The show is giving you a lot of different types of African American characters, different variations. You have Braden, you have Damon, you have Lewis, you have Will, which isn't the best example. You even have the son. It's giving you a it's giving you a lot of different different archetypes of different types of African American man, what they represent, what they hold value to, how they choose to be. Damon's brother CJ, the choices that they make. I don't necessarily hear a lot of people talking about this show, but I mean, I know a lot of focuses on the woman king and how they're not, how it's female driven and all these different things. How they're talking about Black Panther and how it doesn't have that many men in it and all these things. But I mean, when you have a show like this that's showing these different complexities to different types of African American man, you don't hear anything. You only hear about the stuff that people pick and choose what they want to, argue about or give credit to, or what they want to, damn, and different things of that. So I think this is a good, I think the show does a good job of showing different types of African American men and the choices that they make, the consequences that they have and different things like that. In some instances, you can say some of the characters are toxic individuals, in regards to each other, toxic in some of the choices that they make, male and female in that regard. It really doesn't matter in that sense. But it's very interesting in different ways. But again, to me, I would say this may be the best episode. And at this point, I would say that though Lewis and Jax has character, I would say the chemistry is better with Jax and Damon. I just like there's a little bit more. And in this episode, you really see it. It's funny how Jax is like, I think it's from episode 2. She's like, I don't know what you mean. I'm like, clearly they have more going on than just, you were the lawyer and, he was your client. It's right. So, he was your defendant, whatever. It's like, yeah, you had phone sex with him. You had phone sex with this man. And she told him a lot of personal information. They got to really know each other, and I mean, in a very interesting way. You're trying to defend him, but she really got to know who he was as a person. He got a sense of who she was as a person, and they connected on that. So, and you do get a little bit sense more of their history. It does dive more. It shows you versus just telling you what happened during that time, which I like. A lot of times, shows and movies will lose you just telling you stuff versus actually showing you. So I do like that they spent this whole hour showing you that 16-year time in which she met Damon, and how and to see her as a public defendant, to actually see her too in the courtroom during that time. So I think it'll be interesting in these next episodes to see maybe what the difference is, or how she kind of is as a lawyer now versus 16 years ago. So I think that'll all be interesting. And then we're still waiting to find out who the heck attacked her in her, condo house or whatever, in the middle of the night, which I'm still thinking it's probably going to be Will, maybe, unless she finds out something or sees something she shouldn't see, that may be involving Braden's case. Who knows? Maybe something on the laptop, maybe the wife. I don't know, but I'm assuming that the person that broke in is most likely Will, because she got a lot going on and she's not really focused on, being concerned with him, even though he's concerned with her. But either way, we'll find out. We'll get more answers to these questions. Um, Assuming if this is, let's say this is a 10 episode show, we're like halfway through at this point. What do you guys think about the show so far? Are there any characters you like? How do you think of the portrayals of, African American men, the women in the African American women in the show? Any comments, leave them below. Hit the like button if you like this review or anything that I've said. Let me know if I missed anything. Thank you to all the subscribers that I have. And if you are not a subscriber, please subscribe. Again, trying to get 1,000 by the end of the year. I think that's everything I have to say. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I will see you next time next week, and have a good day.